Welcome to the Inside Scoop, a podcast about self improvement and knowledge seeking. Our aim is to explore a diverse range of topics and perform self checks on whether we're being the best versions of ourselves every week. I'm your host, Mario Cervalis, and let's get started. And this week I am here with my co host, Oscar. Hi there.
Hey there.
And I think we decided to talk a little bit about what the hell was happening on the internet the past week. Like, it was an uprising of gamers
Mhm.
after what Joe Rogan said about gamers,
Yeah.
apparently. I was like, whoa, dude. I think everyone overreacted, actually. I don't know. Do you want to introduce people or like what happened, or do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, on a podcast, we can only really say what he said. We can't play the clip, I guess. But,
Yeah.
uh, I mean, I think it's hard. What he was saying, he was coming from a position of somebody who had a big problem with a video game, Quake, right?
Yeah, yeah.
A bit of an addiction. I don't know to what extent because I haven't actually heard him ever talk about it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Uh, and yeah, so he had some resentment towards games, I guess, and he kind of, well, he said something in a conversation like he does on the podcast all the time, and then somebody decided they need to make a big deal of it. But
Yeah, it feels so weird.
it's an interesting thing to talk about anyway, though.
Yeah. And also the fact itself that he's having conversations of like 4 hours or 3 hours, almost every day. And then imagine this huge, just a massive archive of shows. How many things can you actually take out of context? It's like it's so easy to actually just fish some little clip out, cut it out, present it to the world and say, hey, look at that. Joe Rogan is like homophobe or some other things, right? And not only that, there's been these, well, not deep fakes, but, well, even deep fakes, but, the ones where they take clips, cut them together, and make, for example, Joe Rogan versus Bro Jogan or some crap like that, right? And it feels so real. Like, it's
Yeah.
sometimes hard to
Well,
actually see if it's,
those ones,
no, like,
I
not,
mean,
not like,
they're obviously a joke, but
no, yeah, when you see that, a Joe is talking to another Joe, like, yeah, you sort of know that, there's some editing going on. But like, if there's, for example, uh, the editing power used to an extent where you can frame the person in any way you want, you can make a conversation into whatever the hell you actually want, because like there's so much content that's been set on there.
mhm.
But yeah, I think people actually overreacted a bit. Most
Yeah.
so okay, I'll say this. They have the JRE highlights, I think. I think it's JRE podcast highlights. It's a YouTube channel, right? And
Yes.
I think there was a clip posted to there. It's about like almost Joe Rogan takes on like
Isn't
his
it?
take on gamer
Isn't that
addiction
Joe
or something.
Rogan's own channel? Isn't that like
Yeah,
somebody?
yeah.
Yeah,
I think it is. I think it is. But the thing
yeah,
is, that channel is responsible for putting out little highlights of the show itself. So a
yeah.
highlight which happened, which is Joe Rogan talking about gaming addiction, is probably a good clip. It's something that would do well. But I have not checked the clip myself.
Do you know?
But most of the people who have done their takes on that clip have missed the second half of the clip completely. Do you know what I mean? His
Yes.
his clip literally started by him saying, "I have a problem with games because they're very addictive," and blah blah blah, and then he goes into saying that you'd rather spend 3 years learning jujitsu rather than playing games and all that, and people were outraged by that. It's like, oh, how do you know that if you do jujitsu you're gonna be more successful? Or like, do you not know that there are streamers and gamers who actually make money and all of that?
Well, let's talk about it. But I have a suspicion that if that channel is actually owned by Joe Rogan Experience as a brand,
Mm-hmm.
that it was actually done. They clipped that on purpose. They knew it was going to cause some controversy, just
Maybe
for.
possible. It may be possible. I wouldn't. I mean, yeah, that's a good one actually. I don't know if Joe would go for something like that.
I mean,
Although he's
definitely.
not okay, he's not responsible for that channel most likely. There's probably interns or people he's paying or
Interns.
even
Well,
Jamie himself, you
Jamie,
know?
yeah,
Yeah, even that.
probably.
So,
I
I
think
don't
it was
know.
a business decision.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean, all they say all publicity is good publicity. I
It
don't.
is, yeah, that's true. It's probably like Keemstar steering drama.
But let's talk about the actual content of that. Um, so what do you think about his point about jiu-jitsu then? Is it valid?
It is valid to to a certain extent. It is valid because technically, after 3 years of training jujitsu, you're gonna be a better off person. Well, mentally, technically, right? Physically, and again, it really depends on what you mean by playing games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's just assume that for this conversation that we're currently having, we're literally talking about the so the definition of playing games is literally just living in your mom's basement and playing games, like not trying to achieve anything with it, like streaming, going pro, or anything, right? Let's just assume for a moment that it is that. And then let's assume that if we're talking about training jiu-jitsu, we mean, going to a jiu-jitsu training session every 2 to 3 times a week, for example. In that case, yes, I can certainly say that you're going to be well off physically. That's for sure. Again, mentally, I don't know. Maybe if the person really enjoys games and is fine with that, if he's playing multiplayer or anything, right? That may be fine too. But when he goes into saying that you can open your own gym and everything, I mean, I think he was just in the moment, like caught up talking to himself
Yeah.
almost about, oh, you can do this and that because uh, I don't know how easy it is to actually be so good so you could open your own gym and everything, but yeah, I think it is a valid point that doing martial arts is better than just straight up sitting on your chair and playing video games. I believe that's a sensible argument to make.
Well, okay. I guess I just watched your video before coming on this your new video of asking a question, why do anything?
Hmm.
Basically, I guess that was the question.
Pretty much,
And
yeah.
so basically, if it's your hobby, then why not do it? Why you don't have to justify it? I think is one of the things you said there, and I guess it applies
Yeah,
here. If
yeah, and
gaming
that's
is your
that's the
hobby,
point. See, that's the point. It comes in later. But then we're now, as I said, we redefine the terms. We literally define that, going out
okay.
and exercising or sitting on your chair and deteriorating pretty much because there's obviously the healthy amount of gaming. That's for sure. But right now we're literally like saying that physically you're gonna be better.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, you
Physically, you're for
probably are.
sure gonna be better if
Yeah.
you're gonna do 2 to 3 times a week constant training as opposed to just sitting and playing games.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I mentioned mentally, but then again, I think I'm gonna take the words back. It's like that's the point.
Well,
Like
it's a lot of
it
gray area
depends.
there.
It's a gray area. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I can't tell like what's the correlation between a person being isolated in a room, or like its physical health. But then the thing is, I'm a gamer myself, so I know that
Right.
even being isolated in a room does not necessarily mean that you're mentally in a room because when you're playing, you're in that universe, you're immersed in something different.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I don't know like what implications exist after you spend so long in, I guess, a virtual world.
Yeah.
But I think for a
Um,
fact we know that physically you're going to be better off. But that's it physically. Everything else, it's yeah, we would have to have a little debate, I guess.
well,
Um,
yeah, I guess. I guess if we are going to end up in the Matrix eventually, then I mean we'll all be. I think we had the discussion about this.
I think
Um,
people that are playing video games as opposed to practicing jujitsu are gonna be better off when we actually merge with Matrix.
well, I mean maybe I think so because they're more used to being in that an environment. But I think it's so far away that the generations that live then aren't even going. It's not going to be that drastic of a change for them, and
Yeah,
most of us
most
are
likely.
probably going to be mostly online as well, which isn't for most of us a nice thought
Hmm.
that will not see each other physically so much
Yeah.
anymore. But I think that's where things are tending, and we don't really have tending towards, and we don't really have a lot of control over it generationally.
So what do you think happened then? Happens then? Even thinking back to the video itself, what are you gonna do, and why would you do whatever you're gonna be doing, right? Like, what's the point, right? What's gonna happen to our physical bodies? Are we literally gonna be like laying in bed or like in
Yeah,
the Animus machine, like Assassin's Creed? We're gonna be plugged in and just do every or like
something like that, dude.
yeah.
Something like that.
But then
I
what are the
mean,
hobbies? Imagine people's hobbies actually being like, oh, my hobby is like waking up from the Matrix for like 10 minutes every week and just having a little walk around my bed.
I think once you're in there, you'll probably very soon forget about the real world.
That is
You
true.
you might
I think
start
that is
thinking
true.
that was all just a dream. I just woke up
Hmm.
in the Matrix.
Have you ever tried VR?
uh, yeah, I tried a little bit of VR, not a lot. It's kind of shit. It was
Hmm.
just like the goggles that you put your phone in.
Oh. Oh, I
So
remember having that. Oh, yeah. And holy hell, dude. I had the smallest phone and it had like 480p resolution. It's not immersive at all, but the first
yeah,
time I tried it was so like, oh, wow, what is this?
it's pretty cool. You can imagine like with the technology going forward, as it already has, as
Mm-hmm.
far as it is
Yeah.
already, how immersive that is, and then you add all other sensory experiences to that
Oh, yeah.
possible.
So I was in this gaming convention, and I think that was literally the first time I actually tried VR goggles on. I think it was some Oculus Rift or something. But I'm a pretty skeptical, critical dude, right? I was like, yeah, how can this, be immersive? I'm gonna just put this on, and knowing me, I'm just gonna know that I put this on, and it's like, eh. But dude, I put this on, and it was one of like the beginner experiences. It's sort of like when you're using a little net, which you catch butterflies with and stuff, to catch a bird. And you're sort of getting spawned in these different areas, and you have to walk around to like try and catch the bird. And dude, after like 3 minutes or so, once the thing spawns in and I see that I'm standing on top of a very narrow plank, my body just starts feeling like I'm actually on the plank, and like I started walking weirdly, and that yeah, yeah. So that this does uh, add to the fact that we're probably gonna forget that we're in the mix. I mean, yeah, it was cool, dude. I mean, I'm not gonna invest in VR technology anytime soon, I guess, because well, there's still a lot to be improved,
Oh
but
yeah,
wow, dude, even that first experience was like that was neat, man. See a lot of potential.
indeed. Maybe we should steer back to the topic of what we wanted to actually talk about. I guess video game addiction, right?
Yeah, that could be one of it. Yeah, I think that could sort of be one of it because again, why do we do what we do? And like maybe video games is actually something that helps people escape, right?
I guess
Something that yeah.
let's think about society as a whole
Mhm.
and what is best with how addictive video games really are, and not even talking about social media.
Mhm.
Thinking about the future generations, like what are we going to do moving forward, and um, what kind of effect does this have on kids growing up when they spend ridiculous hours playing video games, and what happens when they have to graduate to adult life and
Mm.
have responsibilities. How do they cope with it then? I guess
Yeah, I
because
wonder how it's gonna be different actually, because imagine if the whole generation grows up playing games like that, there still is gonna be some sort of a solution for all this. Because, like, they're gonna need food, they're gonna need energy, they're gonna need everything. Like,
yeah,
there's still gonna have to be people who are not into games, or maybe they're gonna be so lazy that they're just stand up from their consoles by playing games and say, okay, we need to solve something like that. They're just gonna, solve an issue because the lazier you are, sometimes the more genius solutions you come up with.
yeah.
I don't
So here's
know.
the thing with gaming addiction, though. You're probably you're going to have to get the job to basically support your gaming addiction.
Mm,
So you're still going to be, I guess, form of a valuable member of society, a productive member of society, because you have to support yourself gaming unless you're on welfare. But let's ignore that case scenario.
mm-hmm,
Because like in Britain at least, there isn't um, many internet cafes as there are in Asia, perhaps.
mm-hmm,
So you basically have to have a home. Then you have to, pay your electricity bills and your
mm,
Wi-Fi. So for
yeah.
all of these things, and feed yourself, for all of these things, you have to have a job. So it's a lot different of an addiction than, um, drugs perhaps are that you can be homeless and do.
Yeah, that's true. The access is a bit more limited. You actually need a pretty decent system, which means you need to spend money to actually have that decent system. You have to have decent internet connection, and yeah, there's this threshold which you need to. I think gaming addiction is something very a luxurious addiction, isn't it?
Um,
Almost like, yeah, I mean, technically thinking about drugs and depends on what level, what sort of drugs. I guess yeah, every addiction is kind of a luxurious thing to have.
I guess. I mean, people on the streets always find some ways to get the drugs.
Yeah, it's so weird.
There's
Yeah,
always
exactly.
opportunities for them to get them somehow. Even if that is, distributing drugs for somebody.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I guess with gaming addiction though, the worry is that, or the problem really is that, as you grow up playing video games, maybe 8 hours a day because, nobody's controlling how much time you spend video games. And you have pretty much no responsibilities outside of school, right?
Yeah.
Um, so you're basically used to spending this amount of hours playing video games. And I think that's the problem when you grow up and you don't have that time anymore. You don't really know how to enjoy a video game for 1 hour. So you still have time left in the day to do other things, or that you can get up, for school or work, whether that be university or whatever, and actually be a functioning person, rather than just like a zombie walking, right?
Yeah. Uh, I think playing basketball, for example, and having basketball as a hobby, it's a bit, it's kind of a bit different, right? Because you have to, get the ball, you have to put on your trainers, you have to get out into the field, and then once you get tired and stuff, you need to go home. You need to eat. So I think there are people who play basketball all day, but like it's not as if this is a very detrimental hobby or something, because it also feels like people can gather and play a bit of after hours basketball after work.
Yeah. I think the problem that we're looking at really is that nobody is engineering basketball to be addictive. Whereas
Hmm.
in the video game industry, games are being engineered to be more and more addictive.
Oh, that's a very good point.
And there are teams of people getting paid ridiculous money to do this stuff.
That is
Uh,
true.
so that's the problem really. And because of how addictive it is, it's comparable to drugs. And if you build a dependency or build the worst dependency in your develop developmental years when you have so much time on your hands. Because if you think about it as an adult, if you're just being introduced to video games, you've already got your job. You're only going to be able to spend like an hour a night playing video games. So
Yeah,
you're
true.
going to know, you know, you're going to enjoy a video game for 1 hour. So imagine you're a teenager and you're spending 8 hours a day playing video games because you don't have any responsibilities. Now imagine you have to enjoy yourself as much in 1 hour a day as you were in 8 hours of playing a video game. You're not going to be able to get as much satisfaction out of a game in 1 hour compared to the 8 hours you used to spend playing it. So I think that that's the real problem. And then the thing with addiction is you don't enjoy whatever it is you're repeatedly doing anymore. And that's basically what happens when you're trying to enjoy a game for 1 hour when you used to play it for 8 hours a day. You can't do it. And then you keep coming back, you know, you keep
Yeah,
coming
unless you
back
do
for the
some
next fix.
detox.
And, that's basically how gaming addiction is pretty similar to drugs.
Yeah, and then I think it should be treated the same way, right? Like you can get off the addiction. It means your 8 hours today may actually you may only need to play 1 hour a day next year if you know what to do, if you do in moderation, if you go to therapy, I guess. And do you think there should be some sort of ethical and moral laws, committees, something to prevent such things from happening? As in, for because as we've established earlier, there are people who are getting paid to engineer the games to be as addictive as possible.
Yeah,
Do you think that eventually, just like people standing up against global warming, do you think there should be, or there will be, some uprising eventually
I
against
think
like all of that? Like
I think that's way too tricky to do to stop people. You can't really stop people from engineering, how addictive a game is, because then you'd have to have somebody who decides whether what they're doing, the work they're doing, is going to make the game more addictive or not, and where do you draw the line? That would be, I think, way too hard. I think the solution to it is, well, I think one that might come about naturally is as we grow up, as the next generations have parents who have grown up with video games and know a lot of them, what it means uh, to play video games too much and how it affects you later in life. But the other thing is stricter laws, I think, uh, and this might be quite controversial, uh, or at least some sort of a guidance, government guidance that we make people aware of if we don't want to introduce laws, because I think laws are quite extreme.
mm,
But certainly, make parents aware, and teach them, somehow inform them how to deal with, when their child is playing video games too much.
yeah,
And I think
I
that's
think
the
you're right.
solution.
You might be right. Although I'm also thinking, I'll just throw out this controversial idea. Look around yourself. How many people of like your age do you know that, like, if you were to think of a percentage of how many people actually play video games, of your friends and acquaintances, and maybe the statistic may be a bit skewed because, like, assuming you play some game and you get to know some people from the game, then maybe your friend group is a bit different. But like, could you
Um,
make this evaluation at all? Just like, I don't know, approximately.
well, are you just asking me how many of my friends play video games, or
Oh no, like, I'll start off, I guess. I think that a very minor part of my friend group or acquaintances, or like, the circle of people I know or have come across, actually play games.
okay? Uh,
Like really, like, I wouldn't say like overwhelming minority,
I
but
mean, we could look at the
yeah.
statistics, right? But I think
Okay.
the people who do play video games a lot also aren't the most social people, so you're
Hmm.
unlikely to be friends with them. Um, they're likely to have fewer friends, so you're also less likely to be connected with them.
Yeah, that's
You'd have
probably
to
true.
look at actual statistics.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, lots of people play video games, dude.
Yeah, yeah. But the thing is, so
It's one of the
I'm
biggest
only,
industries.
yeah, see, I'm only putting this out because this is our age group, and I for sure do know people who are more into cars and like repairing vehicles and like making new, I don't know, like race cars, modding stuff, doing all sorts of outdoors activities. But I think the generation which is more doomed is the generation under us, like the younger guys. The kids
Mm.
nowadays, I would imagine they are
Oh
actually
yeah,
facing the problems. Because
true.
like as I said, what I'm gonna say or what I said was technically supposed to be controversial, but not really. Because when you think about it, yeah, we are probably still in the generation which was probably not exposed to video games as much as the younger guys actually are nowadays.
Yeah,
So maybe it is true. Maybe we are still the generation which is like okay-ish with the games.
yeah. I think it's certainly going to get worse.
Yeah, it might be.
Um,
I
I'm not
have
sure what to say to
no
that.
idea. No idea how it's all gonna end up, and like, what should we do though?
I
Because the
think
thing
we,
is, we can have conversations, we can speak, and it's fine. But like, what could be done? Although again, do we need to do something? What's the point? Again, just coming back full circle. Like, what is the point? If our population is gonna survive, the civilization's gonna keep progressing, improving.
well, I think that's the worry, right? Because if you do spend your entire teenage years and whatever playing video games, and the majority of the population does that, and you don't really improve yourself, like learn new skills or teach yourself new stuff, um, or if you're not paying attention eh, to school because
Hmm.
of it, and if that's becoming more prevalent, then that has an effect on how we're able to move forward as a society, because we've built up all this technology. Somebody's got to keep this up, at least maintain it.
Yeah, but again, this may sound dehumanizing, but like, we do need consumers, and
Okay.
the demand is gonna create a supply, right?
Well, if the next generation is all addicted to video games, who's making the video games,
Well, that's the point. Who's addicted to
right?
them if no one's making them?
Good point. Yeah, well, yeah,
there,
we're gonna
there's
have
still
this.
gonna be
You can
something,
imagine we're
right?
gonna have this entire this huge gap there, where the the lost generation, you could call it, even the second lost generation.
Well, there's gonna be for sure some people who are still woke, who are like kids that were exposed to outdoor activities more than games, who were maybe forced to go to school, and then were like parents taking away their iPads and all that. So I think we'll be
Yeah,
fine. Well,
I mean, we're
you know,
we're drawing awareness to it, and I think
yeah, yeah, yeah,
we're part of the people that you just described. So
yeah, that's true.
that's why we're doing it, I guess. And hopefully your platform grows bigger.
Hopefully we can
And
just spread awareness. But like, yeah, that's an interesting thought experiment, right? Like, I think stuff is gonna somehow balance out. Because if not, then like, well, too bad. Inevitable demise, right? Like population falls. Well,
well, we can look at it deterministically and say whatever happens happens.
okay,
But
okay.
why would we be here? And this discussion on gaming is coming from somebody who's had a bit of a problem with games growing up. I guess I spent
Mm,
well, I not that I didn't enjoy it, but I spent probably an unreasonable amount of time playing video games growing up, and I
mm.
don't think my parents knew particularly how to, uh, deal with that. So their methods for limiting my time playing video games probably wasn't the most effective. But you know, I guess I've moved beyond that somehow.
Yeah, but that's the thing is because like you became a more educated individual, and now
But you see,
especially.
nowadays, still, I struggle to enjoy video games the same way as perhaps somebody who's, as an adult, just being introduced to them. Like,
Hmm,
I can't get that sort of same satisfaction from them.
it'll take time.
And,
I,
you
I
know,
I imagine it'll take time. If
so
you
if
don't
you
eat
if you're
sugar.
thinking there's some sort of a bias here, that I'm drawing more attention to this than reasonable, then that's probably it.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, but still, imagine not eating sugar, absolutely like zero sugar for like a year, and then eat something sweet.
yeah.
You know what happens? You feel like it's way too sweet for your taste. Have you ever done this? Like, have you? I don't know.
Or you just
Have you felt it?
get freaking, you're in ecstasy or something.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah, because it's like, So I would imagine that slowly this thing still somehow fades away, and
I
like,
guess, yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Well, actually, it's a good example for me because I don't really, unless I'm back home with my parents, I don't really eat sweet stuff.
yeah, and then
I
have you
don't.
like, do you know how it feels when you actually eat something sweet? You just feel just feels way too sweet. It's just like, whoa, what
No,
was happening, right? But
I don't know. I don't think I can relate.
really,
I
hmm,
think it's nice, but I still don't like it because I don't feel the need to eat something sweet unless it's right in front of me.
okay. Well,
So,
probably same with games if you can limit it then. And yeah,
well,
I can slightly relate. I've had
I didn't have a problem with sweets growing up, so it's not really a fair comparison. But
okay. Well, but still. So I was also playing games, and I for some reason think that they have helped me somehow. I don't know how, but like I think I had a discussion with my mom, I think. It's almost like they got me out of like, the street life or something other.
treat life.
No, yeah, exactly, dude.
Oh, this treat fug Marius.
No, yeah, imagine, because I mean that thing's real. I still know some. I mean, I still have some acquaintances who are like all into that, and some of them are, not. Well, they didn't end up where their potential could have taken them. That's the thing. And it's just because they started, going out with their friends, and instead of like spending time doing like good stuff, they would just like go out and break something, go out and like attack some grandma or like some nasty stuff. And like this is a real problem. And like I think
What you
the
say it.
fact that I was actually given a computer and exposed to it, and I just sat there and played games as
So you
opposed
could
to,
go play GTA and hit the grandma in GTA instead.
yeah,
uh,
no, that's real, yeah. And at least it gets you from actually like going out there and doing stuff. I mean, again, depends on where you grew up, right? Depends on what region, what country, what city, what place you're from, what people are around you. But like, this used to be quite a gang place. There used to be some weird things happening, but like, yeah. I mean, I don't want to get into it, right? But
I guess
still, it's something that helped me personally, I think.
that's good. Um, I guess there's also the argument to be made for people who play video games, and we could describe all types of people, but I guess it's a good one of people who play video games and they like it so much that they want to start like modding it and
Oh yeah.
creating, you know, skins or whatever for the game, graphics for the game,
Oh
mod
yeah. That's
stuff,
that's
and then
cool.
that's how they get into programming and stuff, and then they end up making games themselves or working for it. So there's that, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah. And I think let's move towards a wrap up by
yeah.
introducing the second conversation piece, which was overlooked. And we started off the podcast by saying people who were outraged by Joe Rogan's thoughts. I don't think they actually heard his full message, because what he said was people were doubting him. Parents were doubting him when he said he was going to be a comedian, and not many people make it. But he didn't give a damn and just kept going. So he's not really, like particularly saying that you can't make it. It's just like a very unlikely chance. And But afterwards, he ends by saying, you know, if that's your dream, just all for it, go for it, right? So yeah, I think it depends, because again, it also depends on what sort of success are you thinking about, right? Because I
Like,
think we established that physically you would be stronger if you did jujitsu. Maybe by today's standards, you also need to be financially successful. So then, maybe, I don't know, maybe you need to choose a better career path than trying to be a pro gamer or something to like be financially successful. It really
don't make
depends
the
on what
don't make the
measures.
same mistakes that Joe Rogan did in this podcast. No, I mean you're more likely to find a viable career and games nowadays than jiu-jitsu. Let's just put that out there.
No, yeah,
So
I
it's
didn't, I
not
didn't, I didn't compare games and jujitsu careers. I compared any other, which means literally anything. You can be an electrician, you can be a construction worker, and you're gonna have like, let's just accept this fact that you're gonna have some sort of income as opposed to a smaller income if you do games. Because I think it's a reasonable fact to put out there that if you sit down today and decide, okay, I'm gonna grind some game and become a gamer, or
mm,
you're gonna go and apply to work at some sort of a company, you're already gonna be making money in that construction company, for example. It's probably gonna be a very hard job,
right
something
if you know
that you
the
might
trade.
not enjoy, but you're gonna have some sort of income flowing.
Right.
But
Oh
not
yeah, I guess
discouraging the people who want to try for luck, and maybe make it. Um, 'Cause sure, if you're good at a game, there's so many positions. Like there's coaches, there's streamers, and even if you're good at a game, people are gonna watch you, and like just because you're good at it, because they can learn from you. So, but as I say, you have to be like a top something in the game, and you have to spend like countless hours practicing it. So I just say it's a bit harder. Well,
yeah.
harder
I mean you
to
have to
get a
make it
career in games.
clear how hard it is. To be fair, you have to say how low the likelihood is of that. I mean, here's the thing: you need like loads and loads of people going at it to for it to be that hard. Because if
Dota
nobody's doing it,
Dota 2
then
or Dota has, what is it, like 3,700 something professional players. Looking at prize pools, 2% of players make 98% of their revenue.
right,
And this is a scientific fact. Dr. K is doing a research paper on uh, like the actual statistics and facts and numbers on how many people exist, how likely are you to succeed. Obviously, again, we have to take into account sponsorships, brand deals, everything which is
yeah,
not public. What he's doing a research on is prize money, because that is publicly available information. So that I think that's an interesting thing to look at and see. But the thing is, his fact, and I support that, for sure means that if you are the 1000 through 3000th player, you're less likely to receive brand deals and sponsorships and more money than
right,
you are if you're in the top 100 or something. Like, I mean, that's clear, right? It just makes
yeah,
sense. Unless you are steering the other direction and you're a public persona, you're advertising yourself, you're not like claiming that you're the best, but you're an entertaining one. Maybe you're start your stand up, like not like stand up, but like if you do your comedy slash entertainment in that game and you stream it, blah blah. But yeah, but we're not talking about that. It's just
right.
the careers themselves. I don't know, dude. Yeah, it's a very interesting topic.
Well, let's talk about the players themselves. If you have a look at football, you have players at all different levels. Uh, very many levels making a living, or you could say a semi-living, because you get semi-professional players in
Hmm.
football who, you know, play football, get paid something, but then also work a job to to make a living.
Oh yeah,
And
sure.
so if gaming is tending towards where sports, physical sports are right now, it's like football, especially, then you'll have a whole spectrum of people, put in different amounts of effort into the sport. Um,
Yeah, for
and
sure. I've heard Scotland has like 20 something, 28 or so different leagues. Like the football has the Premier League, then has like, I don't
yeah,
know, like there's so many of them apparently. And I may be wrong. I've heard this from like a Scotsman somewhere. He's like, yeah, there's so many like football leagues. It's like amateur and then this division and blah blah this and like there's so many, you know, because the sport is so huge. So I can only imagine that esports is gonna be bigger and bigger, and it's probably gonna get more leagues like that. Because now, like when you go online, all you want to see is actual like pro. For example, Counter Strike. You want to go and see the top of the top pro CS
yeah,
because it makes sense. But
yeah.
if
That's
there's
the
so
thing,
many
right?
players and so many people exposed to that game, eventually after like years, you're probably gonna care about your college team CS:GO players.
Perhaps, but that's the thing though, because it's online, and if you pretty much live online, you can feel like you have more of a connection with some team from another country or another city than
Oh,
you
that's
do
true.
anybody nearby. Like, you don't have this physical connection. You don't have, say, friends that are playing, for a team, or acquaintances or whatever that you might go and watch a game.
Yeah,
That
but
is
at the
social
same
and
time,
stuff.
there may be more esports clubs established and smaller clubs, and then maybe you're a part of it, but then the club has like 50 members and the team only makes like 10 people or something. So then you're sort of rooting for your club, and then maybe you're in the tryouts or whatever. You're trying to like move up the ladders. I think the careers definitely will appear more and more of the careers, and I think it's a good market that will expand in the future. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we touched on it briefly. That's our time for this week, but damn, I could talk about this more and more. like,
But you could.
I don't know. It's an interesting one. Like we could look at it from psychological, from philosophical perspective, from just like career have
Oh yeah.
perspectives, and there's so many ways of looking at this. But we're sort of like, as you see, like tending more towards
Oh
the
yeah. Yeah,
the
yeah.
psychological whatever
Oh, I
side,
thought you
but
were gonna talk about time here, but yeah.
and well, yeah, time. But I mean,
Yeah.
almost
Uh
we could schedule an episode like that sometime in the future if something like that pops up again. And then maybe now there's some other podcast which comes on and bashes gamers because there's been issues with media and gamers for like quite a while. Um, yeah, I guess I'll share this little video with you afterwards. This was uh, what's the
yeah.
guy Fox? What's the guy's name?
Guy
Pretty
Fox.
much,
I don't
there's
know.
a no. There is a pro basketball player, well, a retired one, who is now investing into esports. The way he saw his kid play League of Legends, he understood that this is also a sport. And then he was in an interview on some sort of like a morning show, like talk show, and then the journalists were just laughing like, what athletes, like what are you
Oh yeah.
talking about? Yeah, and he's
I
like,
saw that.
yeah, I mean they're exercising the same, like it's less physical. That the only difference is there's less physical involvement. You don't run around and use your muscles, you use your brain, you use your
Yeah.
muscle memory, you use your like they're all just sweating the same. They're all like, again, less physical involved, but still your heart rate goes up. You're just thinking about tactics, you're acting, you're reacting.
Yeah.
It's the esports.
I mean, as like gaming is supposed to have some benefits, and amongst those, like logical thinking, problem solving, and uh, even reaction times. And I found that perhaps I've played a lot of video games before. I played football
Hmm.
and FPS games, so my reaction time, I guess, was pretty good for those. I don't know how it translates to then, other. other areas. But when I started playing football and I went in goals, somehow I was naturally quite good in goals. Like I was kind of able to predict, what the player coming at me was going to do with the ball,
Wow.
uh, quite well.
That
So I don't
might
know
have
if
something to do with it.
I don't know if gaming actually has done that for me, but perhaps there's something there.
I mean, even from the perspective of us being computer scientists, I I saw great improvement in my, for example, window clicking, opening, dragging, button clicking ability. Dude, I'm like a wizard. It's just because, once you get used to your sensitivity in game, I mean, once you learn about like a sensitivity, you need to find out about all of this information first. And then it's almost the same as playing a first person shooter. It's just instead of shooting at characters, avatars, you're clicking windows and like dragging stuff and like clicking files. So man, it actually helped me out when navigating a graphical user interface here. So I don't know, it's weird benefits, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we should wrap up for this week. I really enjoyed this conversation. Again, as I said in the video, this is one of the, well, these are hobbies, right? And just why do we do what we do is maybe there's
Well, I
someone out
guess we'll
there in the
just
universe who might hear
leave the
this.
people listening to decide for themselves
That is
what they
true.
think. I don't have a closing opinion. I don't know if you do, but
Yeah, I think that's good. Let's wrap it up, and we'll talk to y'all next week.
so yeah.